Welcome to the first Clarity for Climate Resilience webinar. My name is Denis Havlik. I'm working for Austrian Institute Technology in Vienna, Austria, and I'm a coordinator of the Clarity project. I'm here with my co-panelists and some co-organizers. So, Jaro, please.
Good morning. My name is Jaro Misiak. I'm working for Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change, leading the division on risk assessment and adaptation strategies. And I coordinate the CLARA project, Climate Forecast Enabled Knowledge Services.
Laura?
Hello, good morning. I am Laura Parra. I am a transport researcher at CEDEX, which is a public body that depends from the Ministry of Public Works in Spain. And I have been directly involved in the Spanish demo case, which I will explain to you later.
I'm sorry. Good morning. I'm Andrea Geier-Scholz. I'm with Smart Cities Consulting, and I'm a partner in the Clarity project. And we have been developing the marketplace. I'm in the background of this webinar and juggling with your questions and answers. Yes.
Gerald?
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm Gerald Chimak. I'm working together with Dennis in the Clarity project and help him as a supporter in several administrative things and other stuff related to the project.
The organization of this webinar it's kind of two webinars in one. So at the start, we are going to start with talking about the webinar series itself. And after that, we are going to have 3 teasers for future webinars. So also, as you have noticed, people are turning on and off their cameras. So basically, the idea is the one who is talking will show his face or her face, and while the others are just not showing up, so that you know always who is the one really talking. Without further ado, this is the first part of the webinar. What we plan to do is something which is not just Clarity project. Actually, this is also one of the reasons why Jaro is already here with us. But it's not just Clarity and Clara either. What we want to do is a webinar series with many different actors making or participating in making of the webinars and going on for weeks and weeks. Also, we have discussed the possibility to, well, actually not the possibility, but this is seen now as kind of making the time in between the first Climate Europe webinar at 18th of June and the next webinars, which are in September, October, November. So we will fill in this time with different webinars so that you are not bored over summer and there is something always going on. This is the idea, basically. And another thing is, now we are going to ask you who wants to really participate from those of you which are in this webinar. That's just a starting point, obviously. And little poll, please, Andrea. And also another thing is that after that, I would like to have a discussion with you. And since we are not that many on this webinar, we are going to unmute all the attendees. So I'm going to unmute you from my side. And it's up to you whether you want to talk or not. I need to tell you that we are recording this. So if you talk, you are going to be in the recording.
So I show you the results from the little poll. As you can see, 50% want to participate as organizer and have their say on climate services. And all of them want to participate as audience, which is encouraging. So I'm closing this now.
Now, Jaro, please come back and also Laura. And I hope I have unmuted everybody. So basically, Jaro, what is your opinion on this?
Now, this is a fantastic opportunity, you know, for Clarity, for Clara, for all the other projects that are finishing and they are planning to run some outreach activities. So the opportunity is to organize a single coordinated series of webinars, which is not overlapping and which is a sort of telling the whole story behind what has been achieved in terms of European roadmap to climate services, what are the knowledge gaps, what are the outstanding issues, and so on. So having a single and coordinated series of webinars across the different projects and uniting the audience, the user community across the different projects is definitely something that is extremely interesting, because in this way we make everybody aware about what has been done, what still needs to be done, and are able to convey perhaps the policy messages. I would just like to highlight that you know, this webinar series has been discussed and agreed on together with Climate Europe, which is another Horizon 2020 project, which is a coordinating and supporting action. And the role of Climate Europe is exactly to bring together different initiatives like us. So we have agreed together with Climate Europe that this webinar series will be co-sponsored and organized under the umbrella of Climate Europe.
Good. So I'm now going to ask the public if you have any questions. Please just you can unmute yourself and talk. You don't need to type it at the moment. If you have any suggestions for the topics, if you want to tell us that you are really eager to organize something and you have already some ideas, please go ahead. Otherwise, we are just continuing with this webinar further. Okay, so next thing, I'm going to start showing my screen again. Now let us see what kind of things will be in this webinar. So first thing I want to advertise here is the marketplace. Marketplace is one of the results of the Clarity project and is meant as a place where experts or people having some climate services to offer meet with people who need something. So without further ado, I would like to just show you a little video showing how actually you can put your offer on a marketplace.
Welcome to myclimateservices.eu. My name is Chris Climate, and in this video I introduce you to the My Climate Services Marketplace. The Marketplace is at the heart of the Clarity project on climate adaptation. Here you can present your solutions and find new partners for your products. My Climate Services Marketplace, you can network with competent partners and create collaborations for adaptation to climate change. But how does that work? To use the My Climate Services Marketplace, you'll first need a Clarity account. You can find out how to create such an account in the video at the top right of the page. If you have an account, first log in with your user data. Very good. You now have the choice between offers and opportunities. Under offers, you can create solutions for climate adaptation that you have already implemented yourself. This means that you are offering a solution for a specific problem. Project planners and climate experts with a similar problem can inform themselves about your approach and, if necessary, contact you for a project request. I will explain how such an offer is created in the next video. The other possibility, you are still looking for the solution to a specific problem. In this case, go to the field Opportunities. If you are working on a current project, select the Projects field. Here you can enter detailed information about your project and your problem. Your project will then be matched with the current offers on the My Climate Services marketplace, and suitable solutions will be suggested. I will explain how to create such a project in the next video. Finally, you can start a call for collaboration. For example, if you are looking for a partner for a specific project, or more generally, for a new service of your company. You can view and manage your current offers, projects, and calls for collaboration under the My Account field. If you want more information on climate adaptation, please subscribe to our account. Thank you very much for your attention. Your Chris Climate.
As you have heard here, the offer here is for everybody who has any kind of services or solutions to advertise them on My Climate Services, and for anybody looking for them to describe their problem and then get automatic matching either immediately or whenever some new offer comes up. Andrea, I just wondered when this project was mentioned, what is actually meant as a project? Is it a working project, or is it also just some project idea so that you have a nice placeholder to get the offers?
Oh, it can start also as a project idea. So the gist is that the earlier you start considering climate services and data and wondering who you could collaborate with, the better the opportunity to find somebody. So we strongly encourage to also announce as projects ideas and collaborations that are joint developments that you think about. It need not be a specific project right now, but it will just be at the very beginning.
Good. So I'm just showing you for a moment this My Climate Services EU. It's more than just a matchup platform. Actually, it has quite a lot of content. You can take a look. It looks nice. There are also events there, and you can advertise your events there. It's actually I'm quite proud of it. But there will be a special webinar dedicated to this probably in 2 weeks. That's something I would like to discuss also at the end of this webinar. Tentative scheduling is in 2 weeks. And let's go to the second topic. Oh, before that, I would like to have feedback from the public, which is on this poll.
So this is really encouraging. You see that all of the participants in the poll are convinced that this makes sense. And the contribution to the poll was rather high. So I'm
Good.
closing this now. We can.
So that was our first teaser. As I said, we're just gonna have short teasers to show you what else will come in this webinars, and it's mostly about clarity because, well, this is what we start with. The second interesting product or result of the clarity are 2 self-service screenings. I will show the first one in short, which is mainly on heat hazards. And my colleague will concentrate afterwards on a second one, which is about traffic. So what is this self-screening? Well, imagine we start with this freely available open data. And actually we do. Based on this, Clarity has made 23 hazard layers for the whole EU. I don't know actually the technical details, but the important point is these are kind of layers showing you important events during 1 year, or once, which will occur once in a year, once in 5 years, or once in 20 years, according to different scenarios and in different times. Also important to mention, it's 12 times 12 kilometers is based on EU Cordis. So this is not really giving you the city resolution. You don't see anything in the city, but it's giving you very important information on European scale for the whole Europe. The second thing is we have also used this open input data to generate 13 high resolution land cover layers for about 400 urban areas. Actually, not all of them are available yet, but we are just adding them one by one. It's just calculation time. And this is how they look like. So different types of land use. This is based on available data, but actually, in my opinion, much better than anything else which is available. I will not go into detail with this. You will have to come to specialist webinar for this. And in the third step, we are doing something interesting with these two input data which were just shown, which is we are using them to moderate this hazard information, which is on 12 times 12 kilometer. We are moderating that by the land cover. And at the moment it's done for heat. We are also going to add the probability of flash flooding. So you get, this is Vienna, and you can see that this indeed shows some structure on urban level. The resolution which we are using at the moment is 500 times 500 meter. We could probably go also to somewhat a higher resolution, but then it's more computational time. These two pictures are just showing two different scenarios. It doesn't really matter which ones, but you can see the difference. The third one is the population, again, from statistics and from land cover, where the people, we find out where the people actually live. So we know where the residential buildings are. And based on this, well, hazard times exposure times vulnerability, which I'm not showing here, we get an idea of an impact, which again, you can see it for different time periods for different RCPs. Why this is interesting? Well, this is interesting because you can do this on your own, or somebody can do it for you in half an hour of work, and maybe invest one more hour and you have a report which you can download as PDF. So really, actually quite nice report. But there is a last part of this, and we even have adaptation options in the system. So we have, actually, I don't know how many, quite a few of them. And then this is completely new. This is something which we are still testing, but there is actually no real reason why it wouldn't work, because the calculation is exactly the same as the one we were using to make this 500 times 500 grid for the hazard. So the user can then choose what kind of adaptation strategies they want to try out. Press the button, and again, after 15, 20 minutes, get the result, which they can then compare. Okay, in the worst case scenario, end of century, looks like this. But if I choose this adaptation strategy, it looks like that. We also have some estimates of the costs of this, so one should be able to do some very rough cost benefit calculation. Of course, as I said again and again, this is screening. Don't mix this up with fully fledged expert study, but it's interesting. It can be done for smaller projects. It can be done for just about every project in a region, which brings me to what this is really good for. Well, in my opinion, this is really good for any region which is serious about climate change adaptation, because they could have even better screening than what we have now for the whole Europe. And they could offer it, or they could demand from every project in the region, even the small ones, to at least do this screening and see what kind of issues this project will have and what they can do about it, without needing to go to the cost of the fully fledged study. Of course, it's also interesting for bigger projects. One thing, if you see that your project is not really all that problematic, that it's not going to have many issues, then you can just skip buying a fully fledged study, which on the average makes the price lower. And also another thing which I'm not showing in the screens is that it's possible to see other projects, other examples, and also include that in your report. So the idea is that you get a nice report which has some of these calculated things, but also some of like known things like projects which have already been done and which are working well, or fully fledged studies which were done for some similar project, and this is what they say. So this should save everybody time and money. And in the end, we can connect you with people who can do more for you if it's necessary. Opinion now as a public on whether you think that this kind of regional screening services, this one in particular, but possibly some others also, that this is really necessary, something that this is needed, that this is a good thing to have, or whether you think that this is kind of, well, okay, interesting, but not really all that necessary.
Okay.
Wow, this actually seems I was quite convincing. So I will announce that there will be a special webinar. I'm not sure if it's going to be in 2 or 3 weeks. We will announce it. The only reason why I'm not sure is I want to see with Climate Europe Festival and with other people what their plannings are for webinars, and then we will just decide on a slot. Basically, webinar is already prepared, so it's not a problem. Now, that was basically all from me. And I'm skipping to the last part, which is this standardized workflow and reports template for expert studies. So I'm telling you report again and again. And actually, this online service which we have is really excelling at making reports. It's kind of having these steps in a workflow, and in each step you can put in some data. And depending on which data package you're using, this is what I skipped before. If it's an expert data package, then you will just get the results of the expert study and you can put them together in a nice report. If it's the screening one, then then you are calculating on the fly and you do the results, you press the button, you get your report. In Clarity, we have tested this whole idea on 4 different examples, and this one is kind of special. You see, the other 3 are about city. So we are looking at city infrastructure, at people, at heat, at floods. But this one is about road transport, and this is the one I would like to tease today. So please, I'm changing the presenter now to Laura. Laura, please take over.
Okay. Okay, I am not a presenter yet. Okay, now. I think you can see my screen now.
Yes, we see.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you, Dennis. Good morning again. I'm going to explain you the application of the Clarity Climate Service to the assessment of transport infrastructures. I would like to emphasize that the Spanish demo case is slightly different from the other expert studies, but we will have an online tool available at CESIS for doing climate change risk analysis in transport infrastructures at design, rehabilitation, and operation stages. All this process, as Dennis has already commented, is done following the EUGL recommendations. Yes. Okay. Why did we decide to study a road infrastructure in Spain? In the first place, because Spain has an extensive network of roads and railways, with more than 25,000 kilometers of highways and more than 2,500 kilometers of high-speed train. In the second place, the network is exposed to climate challenges. At present, it is estimated that 45% of the road is impacted by weather events, whereas 6% of the network suffers important impacts. This is why it is so important to have a tool to analyze the risks that climate change poses to our infrastructures. So, the climate assessment begins with the identification of the main hazards for the road infrastructure. In this table, you can see some of the climate variables of more importance for different road elements. And of course, we have to take into account the affection to daily traffic. See, for example, maximum temperatures affecting pavement routing. Mean temperatures might affect also pavement cracking. And very important, intense rainfall, that is a key parameter for the drainage. Not having a good design of the road drainage might mean floodings in the road, affecting traffic, affecting the infrastructure, which is one of the most important problems we face. These hazards have been studied with the support of predictions by AEMET in Spain, plus the predictions by Clarity Project in the whole Europe. All of it is calculated for different RCPs and different time periods. Once we have identified and calculated the hazards with the help of the tool, the next step is the exposure analysis. Here, the user can create and edit the elements that might be impacted by the climate events that have been studied within Clarity. Each element has certain attributes that can be modified by the user. See below, for example, an example of a cut in the road where we have to study the main elements that are its height, the materials of the rock where it is excavated, and also the slope of the cut, because this is going to be the most relevant issues in order to see the impact of heavy rainfalls. Then we have to do the vulnerability analysis. Here, for each element, you have to analyze the severity and probability for different time scenarios, and taking into account exposure and sensibility, you perform the vulnerability analysis. This is done by means of expert criteria, and the results will be shown graphically in the maps that the tool will generate. Finally, an automatic risk evaluation is performed based on the data that has previously been uploaded in the tool. As a result, we obtain a table, which you can see here, and for each element, it will state the risk level for the element that might go from negligible to very high. According to the risk label, it might be needed to implement different adaptation measures. Within the project, some adaptation measures have been identified. They will be uploaded in the tool, And for each one of these measures, you will have a description of the measure. You also have an average cost, and also you have an estimation of the expected efficiency of the measure. Then, with these adaptation measures, you can take the decision of implementing them, and you can do a new calculation and obtain the new expected risk levels. This is a summary of the Clarity Climate Service for road infrastructures, and in our opinion, its applications are clear. For example, in the design phase, it will provide improved climate data for design and information to assess climate change vulnerabilities and propose adaptation and mitigation measures. Also, in the construction phase, it will help to define a more efficient work program. Finally, at the operation phase, it will allow a climate-informed decision-making procedure and risk analysis. From my side, this is what I really wanted to tell you, just an outline of the possibilities of the tool, and invite you to contact us if you want to know more about the Clarity Transport tool. And of course, stay tuned because there are more transport application webinars coming soon. Thank you very much, and this is all from my side.
Thank you, Laura. And now we are switching to Yaro to show that we are not doing only Clarity. So Yaro, I'm making you a presenter. You can also turn on your camera.
Thank you very
Yaro,
much. I need just to...
You have a very nice Windows screen. We are not seeing your presentation.
Do you see the presentation now?
Better.
Yeah, no, I have multiple screens, and in order to shift between them. Okay, so I have only a few slides just to introduce, in these as a teaser, perhaps what we are doing in Clara and why this might be interesting for you. So the webinar series that we mentioned at the beginning, we like to think of it as being, Climate Thursdays after we have Friday for Future. So we have something like evidence-based on knowledge behind policies that take place on Friday. So this is just, the thing. Very quickly about my institution, Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change is a center of competence for multidisciplinary research on climate change. We are running different global or European continental scale Copernicus services, including seasonal forecast for ECMWF or Copernicus Climate Change services. We are running also Copernicus Marine Environmental Service and several others. We are focal point of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for Italy, and we are running, the Competence Center for European Environment Agency, the European Topic Center on Climate Change, Impacts, Vulnerability and Adaptation. Clara is Horizon 2020 project. The full acronym stands for Climate Forecast Enabled Knowledge Services. And the main scope of the project, as several others funded under Horizon 2020, was to develop a set of climate services building upon the Copernicus climate change services, and especially seasonal forecast and sectorial information systems. And the important part of our research is to demonstrate the value and ensure the applicability of our services. So the project ran from 1917 until this year, has been extended because of the COVID-19 crisis until September, and we will complete our outreach activities by basically by the Research and Innovation Days, which will take place in virtual form in September on 22nd to 24th. Clara Consortium involves 10 partners from academic, businesses, and public administration, and the key scope of our research and innovation was to contribute to the roadmap on European climate services. Right, so we have developed 14 services covering all priority domain of the global framework on climate services. So we are capturing the disaster risk reduction, water resource management, health. We are capturing the water resource management as well, and agriculture. You will find the extensive information about every service on our website, which is www.clara-project.eu. You will see it on my final slide, and you will find the full information package on every service that we are offering. That includes the presentation, a poster, and the technical information. And we have presented our research also last week during the using ECMWF forecast, and those intervention have also been recorded and might be accessed from the page of the project. So this is an overview about the project as a teaser. Now what we are doing together with Clarity and with Dennis and other colleagues is to sort of fill the calendar over the summer, and starting from the Climate Europe Festival, the opening event, which will take place next Thursday on 18th of June, and the next Climate Festival event will then take place in September on 17th. So what we are trying to do with this webinar series, to working together with Climate Europe and other projects, we are trying to fill the period between June and September and possibly beyond, and suggesting the common format, common audience, and the common let's say way to convey the results that we obtain from different European funded projects. For example, the 25th of June, we are happy to take the organization of the webinar on behalf of the Clara. Initially, we thought that that webinar could be dedicated to climate adaptation, but then I have learned that DG Klima is going to offer a specific adaptation webinar the weeks after, also on Thursday. So we will probably change a little bit the topic in order not to overlap. And then you see also several other slots being taken by other projects, or the leadership behind those events taken by other projects, or users. For example, on 16th of July, as a part of the climate services in my regions, we will host the Emilia-Romagna region in Italy that will explain how they use climate services that have been developed in different projects, including the Clara project, and what are their views on what is the need for climate services, where are the gaps, what are the difficulties. So Emilia-Romagna is running their own series of webinars, also on Thursday, and they are held in Italian language. They will run in parallel to this Climate Europe co-sponsored Horizon 2020 webinar series. And on 16th of July, we will have a joint event where we will talk to the basically policymaker from the Emilia-Romagna regions, and they will explain what they do in terms of climate adaptation and climate mitigation, and how the climate services might help them. On 23rd of July, there is interest from Safer Places, which is a project funded by Climate Cake, and they offer to look into how climate services, especially those related to the pluvial, coastal, or fluvial flood risk, might help designing climate adaptation strategies and plans. And in September, just to draw your attention to, on Thursday, 10th of September, there will be a workshop co-organized by European Commission, DG Climate, on climate adaptation modeling. Part of the workshop is dedicated to invited experts only, but but the rest of the workshop is open to the public, and everybody will be invited to participate in the discussion, plenary discussion, or hands-on exercises, or specific dedicated tutorials. So this is our plan. There are still some slots which are not taken. Those will be filled very quickly. So we will keep a calendar of events constantly updated, and other European funded project or everybody else from Climate Cake or other initiatives are happy to join in. So our aim is possibly to combine a contribution from more than one project for a webinar, just to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and confrontation, what has been achieved and what not. And I would like to stop here. Simply, if you are looking for more information why waiting for the next Clara webinar, please have a look on our website, and you might drop me an email if you are interested in knowing a little bit more or getting in touch with the developing team. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jaro. This is a really nice start for this final part of the webinar, which, just a moment. So I'm sharing my screen now again. So I have two more polls, and I would like to have some discussion on this. So one thing is, I believe that we all know that the climate change adaptation planning and implementation is not picking up as fast as it should. We have talked with investment banks. We know how difficult is it to sell these services today. We know also from our regions that they are they want to do it, but it's all going very slow. So the question is, what is it that's really holding back this CC adaptation planning and implementation, in your opinion? I can already see that there are quite a lot of people saying other, and this is actually very interesting. I would like to know, what is this other? And so please, those of you who have answered other, also those of you who have answered some other answers, but especially those of you who have answered other, what are these other reasons? So please unmute yourself and just talk if you want, or post it as a question if you don't want to be recorded. So Jaro, if you could also come back, and Andrea, maybe you too, and Laura. I would like to ask you, maybe, Jaro, what do you think? I mean, what is, in your opinion, really holding back this at the moment? Everybody knows that climate change is coming, or at least, well, there are always deniers, but it's pretty visible. Everybody I talk with in regions, they all are saying, oh, we are pretty scared, we already have problems. But on the other hand, it's still kind of, maybe it's just taking long to start because it's big, but Jaro, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I have to share the opposite experience. Well, we've been working with cities, we've been working with communities and regions, and we have found a lot of interest in climate adaptation, and at least in understanding of climate-related risk. And perhaps there is something like gap between your climate risk assessment and identification of your priorities, what should be done, and then the implementation in practice. And the gaps, there are a number of barriers, and of course the financing, lack of substantial funding for climate adaptation, and the community level is one of the reasons why those, we don't manage to really to accelerate the shift from having a locally agreed and adopted climate adaptation plan and the implementation phase. At the European level, you know that we have the EU adaptation strategy adopted in 2013. It has been reviewed and evaluated in 2018, and now the Commission is working on the new and more ambitious adaptation strategy that will be presented next year in 2021. From the content, there is an ongoing consultation on that strategy until 20th of August. So next time we will show you also the link how to access the consultation. But you can also express your opinion what should be done and how it should be done. But from what I can anticipate already, there will be a lot of emphasis on mobilizing climate knowledge. And this goes to the second point on your list. The relevant data, services and partners are difficult to find. It is true that the climate relevant knowledge is not available always at the scale where it's needed. At the community level, we need higher resolution climate scenarios, higher resolution climate simulations. We need adequate uncertainty analysis and robust analysis of adaptation options. We need also an adaptation pathways, right? As we learn more about the possible impact of climate change, how to shift between one adaptation strategy or intervention set into others that are more locally optimized. So there's a lot of knowledge needs, not necessarily because the knowledge is lacking, but because it's lacking at the level where the knowledge is required. And yesterday and the day before, we have this discussion. We have had this discussion in the GPI climate community and the era for climate services, era for CS. And basically, the discussion concluded the priorities that we had 5 years ago in terms of roadmap to climate services and so on are still relevant for the time being. Of course, the context has changed. We now experience higher level of awareness, high level of knowledge and willingness to enroll in these discussions. But the problems as the context is shifting, the priorities for long-term research are the same. On the short term, what is really important to realize that the COVID has changed. Basically, the COVID crisis has changed the initial conditions. We are now investing a lot into green recovery programs. Those recovery programs need to be climate proofed, so there will be a massive need for climate services, tailor-made climate knowledge. So I guess the reasons that I'm just explaining a little bit in a wider context are something that the audience did not feel they are matching one of the categories that you identified, and so this is why we ended up having too many reasons in others. I think there is more detailed and locally grounded, locally specific reasons why the adaptation is proceeding at different speeds across Europe. I hope I have answered and satisfied your question.
Yeah, I will just add my own experience. What I've noticed during the Clarity project was that our regions in the beginning, well, there were a couple of enthusiasts who were working on the project from us, but the rest of the stakeholders there were anything but convinced. And as the time goes, now we are seeing really great interest. We will show very soon in our webinars what the reactions of the regions are today, like in Linz, like in Naples, like in Stockholm. The cities, the regions are really putting this, what they have learned in the project, they are putting this in their plans. They are really putting the money on the table now. So in my opinion, this is what I've asked, like, why is it so slow? My feeling is that we are about to see an avalanche. That this is like, that the growth has been slow, but it's exponential growth. And now it's about to explode in the next 1 to 3 years. That's my personal opinion, but we'll see. Good. So, second topic, which I would like to ask you also is for this next webinars, and this is opening the final discussions, I would also like to discuss the timing of the webinars and the name maybe of this series, which Jaro has already mentioned. But let's start with just this question here. And again, if you have other ideas, please type it or tell us afterwards. So we have some interesting results here. So we see that really this question of how to find climate services, which is related to marketplace, this is something which is very interesting for people. Also to hear more of screening services, which is quite convenient since we have already webinars prepared, which are just waiting for appropriate slot. And other questions also have their share of people who would like to hear them. Now, I didn't look at questions typed if there was anything important mentioned by the public as additional webinars which they would like to hear about. I don't see it right now. Andrea, if you find something, please just tell us. In the meantime, I would like to go back to this question of the naming. We named, initially it was just meant to be just, clarity webinar series, so we didn't really care that much. Afterwards, we discussed this a little bit and we came up with this idea of calling it Clarity for Climate Resilience, which does have a name of Clarity Project in the name. But it's also, well, clarity is clarity. It's not just a project name. We are not trying to usurp this name. It's a dictionary word. Jaro is concerned that this is still, politically maybe not something good because, okay, other projects would not be happy to participate if it's called Clarity. I don't really mind. We can call it Climate First Days or we can call it something else. Unfortunately, I didn't make a pool for this, so I would like to hear from you or to type it as a questions. What is your opinion? In the meantime, I would like to also ask my team from Clarity, what is your opinion and how shall we just change the name or shall we have a name just for our stuff and the overall umbrella is then called differently? What's your opinion? I'm feeling a bit alone here. I would like to see some more faces on the camera. And Jaro,
So, yeah,
please,
Andrea
please
here.
don't go away.
I think that the individual project should be mentioned at least the hosting project should be, the involved project should be mentioned in the name, but an overall umbrella like provided from Climate Europe or a subtitle to the Climate Europe series would be, I think, an advantage.
Okay, so I don't really mind. We can also give it a name, something from Climate Europe, because they are kind of already an umbrella. If you think that this is good, I don't know. Or Climate First Days. One reason why I'm not so sure about Climate First Days is that by looking at this agenda, which you have shown, Diaro, and maybe you should show that slide once more. I will make you presenter again. My feeling is that we will end up with having 2 events per week and not just one for the next couple of months. Because if you look at this is already filled. And like Clarity itself has ambition to organize like half a dozen of webinars. And I'm sure Clara can do half a dozen. And we do intend to continue after the project end. Our project end is end of August. And we intend to continue with this at least until the end of the year from the Clarity side, and probably then other projects will pick up. But still, I kind of feel that maybe once a week is not enough.
Yeah, perhaps, let me quickly answer to that. First, of course, this stops in September because, we don't have structured intervention afterwards. But of course, this can be around, the Climate Europe Web Festival is continuing, in October, November. So we can also continue filling the time period between the Climate Europe Web Festival also beyond September. Now, what we are suggesting here with this calendar is not to dedicate every webinar to a single project, rather than to combine the content and inputs from different projects and address the same audience. Having too many webinars over the summer period might lead to fragmentation, and the people might not be willing, to participate in far too many, webinars. So this is a soft approach to trying to combine the content of different projects and offer something like coherent story. Now, the type of organizers, what we suggest, Clara, Surfer Places, and so on, it doesn't mean that this event would be entirely dedicated to this project. That would only mean that the project takes care of the organization and hosting of the webinar. So the effort is passed across the organization and the project, but the webinar itself will possibly involve other projects and researchers from other projects as panelists, and conveying messages across the project. Not every project has its own 5 webinars or something, but rather combining the knowledge. So that's the idea behind.
Okay, then probably what we'll do from Clarity side is then to use Wednesdays for our specific webinars and Thursdays for these joint webinars. So I think this is okay, and the rest is just then a question of discussing who exactly does what on Thursdays, and Wednesdays we just leave for Clarity to do whatever Clarity wants. I hope that nevertheless the rest of the network will help us to advertise this, but that's another story.
Yep.
There is another question which I would like to ask, and that's we have a lot of regional results. And these regional results, we want to present each of them. We have to present anyway each of them to the local public, which means it's going to be like for Linz, it's going to be in German. For Stockholm and Jönköping is going to be in Swedish, etc. And I'm wondering how much sense it makes to do both like German and English version of these local webinars, or in your opinion, is this just something which is not necessary, and instead for English ones, we just go for kind of teasers and summaries, whereas the regional ones with complete findings and are always done just in a local language. I'm really not sure what is the best here. So Andrea, Yaroslav, Laura, what do you think?
I think that local and regional anchorage of climate-related projects and climate services is crucial. So I strongly second for having webinars with a strong regional context and also with in regional language. And maybe this could be a thing not only to cluster the project and the joint webinars by by topic or by climate service or by addressed sector, but also by addressed region, and to say, okay, and this is a, let's say, an Italian webinar focusing on what happened in this project in an Italian context, and likewise for other regions.
So even when I think of it, even for kind of these cross-project events, it would maybe make sense to make at least some of them in regional language, and like, okay, now we are talking about just Austria or just Italy or even just South Italy, like we have 3 projects which have been very active there, and each of them will present this, and it's going to be all in Italian, so that the local public from Italy can really enjoy it and join really without thinking about English language. Yaro, you are living in Italy now, so
I think we are doing that, right? The question is, if you organize a series of webinars in local language, does it really contribute to the European discourse on climate adaptation or something? Right? So if you want to attract international audience, then you need to guarantee that everybody understands the discussion. And if you want to organize the local dialogue on what should be done, then you need to make it in local language. So those two, you don't satisfy 2 purposes with a single webinar series. So this is why in Italy we will have a webinar series that is run in Italian, that's done, for example, in Emilia-Romagna region. As I mentioned, there will be a parallel series of webinars dedicated to the regional adaptation strategy and plan, engaging the local stakeholders. But from this discussion, what is interesting on the international level is the experience, right? Somebody simply, summarizing the story behind what are the priorities, what are the strategies, and so on. So that might be 1, 2, or 3 persons from that region reporting at the European level, taking out the key elements and key conclusions that might be relevant for other regions. And the best way would be to combine those insights from with somebody talking about Sweden, for example, right? And exchanging the ideas. So what we suggest is, of course, the regional webinars are important in local language. But if we are designing this webinar, for European audience, then we need to pick up from the locally and in local language held webinars to somebody that will summarize the key points and report back at the European level.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. I think that this, let's say, main series is in English for international public, but that it's important to have the local part, and that we should always be mentioning that there is this connection. Like here, we are just reporting on global findings and most important things, but next week there will be a special one in Italian, which is talking about the details of Emilia-Romagna region, and the other way around. While you are having the one in Italian, then you mention, yeah, but if you want to see more about the European perspective, please join us in 2 weeks, because we will be discussing something related to this also for the rest of Europe, not at this level of details. And I think that this is really a good synergetic effect.
Yes, I agree.
I think that we need the local anchorage because it's crucial to come out of this elite area where climate services are sitting right now. So if we really want to reach our end users, our real end users, we need to have some local and regional context, strong regional context.
Good. So, Andrea, can you tell us, please, if there are some special questions waiting for us still, or public, please, if you have any final questions, tell us.
So first, I want to post the link for the public consultation that was mentioned. So it's in the chat right now. And then we received a question rather early, and I strongly suggest to open the floor to all. So you're all unmuted. Please unmute yourself individually and ask and comment. And I invite Francesca to have her question that she asked before. So I apologize that we didn't take up it earlier. Please.
Hello there, thank you. Hope you can hear me.
Thank you.
Yeah, we hear you.
Thank you for the webinar. My question was related to the marketplace, honestly. So we need to come back fairly at the beginning of the webinar. I was wondering, it's more out of a curiosity, but I was wondering if you had any contact with other platforms on the European Commission that are boosting all the innovations funded originally by, for example, the H2020 program. There is, for example, the Innovation Radar portal that is displaying everything. I'm sure that you know, so I'm not bothering them much. But I was wondering if you had, as Clarity, any contact with these kind of portals, and if you are actually merging them in the future, or if you are creating synergies with them. Thank you.
Well, merging is maybe a little bit a too strong ambition, but yes, of course, we interact and we are in close connections, and we are discussing about sharing content and some joint activities as well. So yes, there is always an eye on Innovation Radar and H2020 results portal and Climate Adapt, and also cross-reference with other programs like Aero4CS or GPI Climate. So yes, definitely there are interconnections, and if you have something that you want to put our attention to, so please welcome and drop us a note, or drop me personally a note, and we can discuss this further. Thank you.
I can show you something which is coming from another life of mine. This is, let's say, a somewhat similar idea from this climate marketplace, but it's dedicated to crisis management. So we have here a portfolio of crisis management solutions and gaps which are important for the crisis management, and then matching of these gaps to this portfolio of solutions. The interesting thing is this is really multilingual. It's like in a lot of languages, and we hope to be able to maintain this lot of languages after the project. At the moment, it's going to be just English and German maintained after the project. The rest we don't have money to translate to. But this is not on a topic anymore. Now, what is on the topic is the way how we are positioning this portfolio of solutions in crisis management. We are positioning it in such a way that we are letting anybody who wants pick up this information very easily in machine-readable format, and just take it and put it in their databases, show it on their sites, with fully fledged possibility to search for things they're interested in. Why? Because we hope to, in that way, to encourage all the projects, everybody in the world, well, everybody in Europe at least, to just put their things here and then pick it up and put it wherever else they want to have it in real time, together with gaps and whatever they're interested in, rather than duplicating again and again and again these marketplaces. And I think this is very relevant also for what we are doing here in Clarity, and that this kind of approach should be followed further. That whenever you do, I mean, we cannot prevent people from doing their own marketplaces and trying out and thinking they are better than we are. And of course, we believe we are the best in the world. But the worst thing which can happen is that you put it in one marketplace and then it's only there and nowhere else, and you have to push it on 20 different places. I think for a solution owner, that's not really a solution. And since technically this is almost the same, actually, technically as the marketplace we have in Clarity, I think that we could push for that approach also here. So, any other questions? If not, we have done already more than 1 hour. I think that's more than enough for a webinar. And I want to thank everybody for participating. We will be announcing more webinars on this series and also more Clarity webinars outside of the series, as we just decided, very soon. So please stay in touch. And if you want to be informed about what we are doing, please don't forget the final survey after this webinar. Just click I want to be informed. We are serious about this. We are not going to bother the people who click don't bother me. So thanks, everybody. Thank Yara.
Thank you very
Laura,
much.
and
Thank
Andrea.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.